very nice to see those of you I can see. If you are currently have your cameras off and will be open to turning them on, that is always a lovely, lovely thing for Alex and I, or Alex and me. And great to see some familiar faces and names. I kind of thought that might be the case. And actually, it makes me a little bit more nervous. So thanks for that, Mark and Keely and Kat. And some other lovely people here too. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Robbie Swale, and I've been coaching for about 9 years. And these days my work is split in kind of 3 ways. So I'm really interested in why we sometimes don't do the things we really want to do. And that's what my series of books is about, called the 12-Minute Method. Most of my coaching work happens with leaders and entrepreneurs, kind of people facing in complex organizations or with complex roles, and how do you cope and thrive in that? And then a little by accident, and then more recently, much more by design, I have a part of my work supporting other coaches. And that has evolved into the Coach's Journey, as Alex said, which is a podcast, a group coaching program, and a kind of resource center for coaches, which you can find at thecoachesjourney.com. And that happened a little by accident. The reason I say that is about 7 years ago, when I became full-time as a coach, I wrote an article about that, and it went kind of mini viral in the coaching world. So it got, thousands of views and hundreds of comments and likes and all that kind of thing. And on the back of that, I started working with coaches. I realized I really cared about coaching and the craft, and ended up doing that. And then that evolved into a podcast and much more. And only this year, really, did I really crystallize some thinking about how a coaching business works based on some of those initial insights that I'd had about how I took my business full time, and then kind of road tested in all that work with coaches over the years, and also by interviewing on the podcast many successful coaches about how they built sustainable business, including Katrina Horry. So go back and listen to episode 5 for that one, and some other great friends of Mo as well. We've got interview with Mark coming up pretty soon, I think. I can't remember exactly when it is, Alex, in the next month or two, isn't it? Which is about time, because we recorded it quite a while ago. And I guess maybe that's just the last thing to say about that before I hand over to Alex to introduce himself. Alex, Mark, Kat, and many more, Keely, these people, like many friends, colleagues, and clients and staff of clients and all kinds of things, have been through the Mo training. So it's a real pleasure to be here with you all in person and with some people on the recording to contribute to the community even a little bit. Part of the reason that this event came about is because when I released there's a kind of an ebook you can get with more context on what we'll talk about tonight from thecoachesjourney.com. When I released the Coaching Business Flywheel as an idea, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, it had the same feeling that most things I've ever made have had, which is, excitement and a bit of a rush, but also a real sense of, is there anything even interesting here? And the 2 pieces of feedback that made all the difference to me was, one of my clients said, well, imagine if we got this in front of every coach as they were graduating, like how much angst that would save, and how much more focused people could be. And Miles Downey, who's I met through the podcast originally, but has also been my coach, he wrote a great book called Effective Modern Coaching, and he also founded the first organization in Europe focused purely on training coaches way back in the late 90s. He said he wishes they'd had this stuff when they were running the School of Coaching, and so that was really meaningful for me. And that's a big part then of why we ended up here. So I will do like an agenda and stuff in a minute, but Alex, do you want to say a few words about who you are?
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. Hi, everyone. I kind of love being here for 2 reasons. Obviously, I started my coach journey in the Mo community, but came into the Coach's Journey community through Alex Smith, who recommended some of the podcasts, the early podcasts. So now I split my time running a charity that uses coaching and residentials for unrepresented young people for education. Charity called Universe-Fi. Just a few volunteers on here who've come through the Mo community as well, which is both wonderful to see. And then a day a week, I run my own coaching business. And a lot of the support I've had on that has been through the Coach's Journey, both the podcast and the community. I'm now really fortunate to be part of the podcast team. And yeah, I think hopefully tonight as well, from my perspective, as Robbie jumps into the agenda in a minute, be able to show there's loads of different ways to apply the flywheel. Robbie's a full-time coach and I'm very much not. And the flywheel has been really invaluable in thinking about how I do coaching and how to tie together all of the things I do. So yeah, really excited to share some of that and be with you all, be part of MOE again.
Nice. So let's do really quick agenda. Mostly I do agendas in workshops like this. Let's just get the slides up, shall we? Because someone once told me that there's research that says the only thing that really predicts how successful people think a meeting is how clear a picture of the meeting they had at the start. So that's partly why we're doing agenda. So we're doing hello and check-in. That's what we're doing now. We're going to do some check-in in the chat in a minute to find out a bit more about what you want from this call. I'll kind of present the flywheel and give some context for it. We'll do some coaching practice. You'll have a chance to coach each other on, the invitation from us will be on the flywheel in your coaching business. We'll think a little about what holds us back, because it's one thing knowing or having someone say how they think a coaching business works, and it's another thing creating the thing that you want to make. We'll have a chance to do some live coaching and questions. And then we'll finish by 9 o'clock UK time. It's definitely in the morning in the part of the UK I'm in. And that's that. And then just to kind of bring a little bit of the coach's journey, the coach's journey community, like Alex said, is a big part of our work over there. And what I accidentally learned is that when I first ran a group coaching program, I brought a few of my values to that. And what I accidentally learned is they make for a really good learning experience. So I'm going to really quickly introduce them now. From everything I know about MOE, they won't be alien to any of you, but it's worth mentioning them briefly now. So this is just this invitation in this call to just lean into courage a little bit more. And what we find when we do that is we get deeper connection and more impact. And by courage, I just mean in those moments, if you feel a little flash of fear, courage is just acting in the face of fear. That's my definition of it. Just choose to act a little bit more than you normally would. That's the invitation for this call. And there's a lot of people on this call, and you won't know some of them, and so that might be particularly relevant. Again, lean into honesty a little bit on this call. You get the choice to be a little more honest than you normally would, or a little less. Just choose a little more. That's the invitation. Courage and vulnerability are really close, but in a group situation, and there will be a chance to do some coaching with me later in the call if you want to, in front of the group, and that can feel pretty vulnerable, as can asking questions. I've had to do a lot of work on myself to feel more comfortable asking the questions that are pertinent for me in a group situation. So again, just lean into that. But above all, take some leadership over this experience. So we're going to do some things in this call that we think will help you hopefully build a sustainable coaching business. And one of the things we're going to do is present a model, for example, and we're going to do it pretty quickly. And so bring what you need to bring to get the most out of this call. Look for the key insight that'll be useful for you. I'll never forget another frame for if we're thinking about leadership is and taking responsibility for our learning. I'll never forget a woman called Isabel Mortimer said this on a program that I did. It was a kind of throwaway remark that she had to, even if there's stories you've heard me tell before, if you've listened to a podcast episode or something like that, you get a choice in those moments where you feel like you know something to bring more curiosity about yourself and your reactions, or why I'm choosing to do something and thinking, yeah, I'd do that the same as Robbie, or I really wouldn't. But above all, inviting that leadership. Alex, what should we do next?
Yeah, well, I think sort of in any coaching fashion, would love everyone to take a moment, just put in the chat, what would you love to get from the session today before Robbie dives into introducing the flywheel? And while you do that as well, I think to build on the values Robbie mentioned, like the flywheel is a living, breathing thing. You'll probably say this, so I might be spoiling it, Robbie, but I remember you talking about when you first introduced it and someone instantly went, this doesn't quite fit for me, and the flywheel then adjusted some more. So yeah, also very open to the input of, oh, well, this thing worked that you could add to the flywheel, or I noticed this, so that we create something that supports people even better. But yeah, loving. So we've got opportunities coming up, direction, clarity on how to take an ambition and make it a reality, ideas for improving my coaching business, a better understanding of where to go next. Wonderful. Keep popping them into the chat. While Robbie, I'll hand over to you to bring up the flywheel.
Yeah, lovely. So, yeah, nice. Love seeing them come in. Yeah. Oh yeah, Keely, you heard the one on, yeah, you shared it on LinkedIn, right? The interview I did with Claire on the Coaching In podcast, which is really worth checking out if you've never come across Claire Pedrick and the Coaching In and stuff. There's a massive resource there. Yeah, lovely. So I think between these things, these look like the kind of things, it's always good to do this kind of thing. These look like the kind of things we'll be able to help with. And of course, by setting these intentions, you start to create it because your attention will be focused on getting these things, clarity and confidence in coaching moving forward. Yeah, lovely, Lisa. That's really nice. So, where to begin? So, look at the coach's journey. We are really focused. It has been and now we have a little team, including Alex, and we are really focused on making it so that everyone who has the potential to be an amazing coach gets to do amazing coaching. And in particular, that no one quits coaching because the business of coaching feels too hard. And I've kind of seen that happen in different ways, and it always strikes me as really sad because the world really needs coaches and coaching, whether you're doing that full time or you're just bringing it, in your leadership in your lives. My hope is that the flywheel is I think it's hard for me to say because I have my own resistance, but it feels like a genuinely original contribution to that, a way for people to look at a coaching business and understand what it is. And it isn't necessarily easy, but it is relatively simple. So I'm going to tell the story of it a bit. I'm going to outline what it is, and I'm going to dive really quickly into each part. And the reason I'm going to do it quickly is I'm really focused on you all getting the sense of it, as somebody said in the chat, and looking for that one thing that stands out for you that'll be most useful. And there's a free ebook you can get at thecoachesjourney.com if you want more context. You'll have the recording to come back to if you want to kind of double click or slow down or anything else. And of course, there's a chance to ask questions. So let me do a little storytelling. So basically, I was listening to an interview with Jim Collins, who wrote a book called Good to Great a few years ago. And I actually haven't read Good to Great, but I've read a follow-up of his called Turning the Flywheel. And I read that because of hearing him talk about the flywheel on this interview. And I'll explain it in a minute, but the idea broadly is a virtuous cycle where if you can identify these things and keep putting energy in, your business will gather momentum. And the term flywheel is an engineering or a weaving term where you put momentum into something and the flywheel stores that momentum and energy for later use. And that's the idea here with the flywheel. There might be actions in your business, in your organization, where you put the energy in now, it's useful now, and it gathers momentum for later. So if we do some slides, let's make this real. So out of Turning the Flywheel is this idea for an Amazon flywheel. So everyone probably knows the organization Amazon, and it's a good one to start with because we get this sense of what this means. So the Amazon flywheel would look something like this. We want to get, we're Amazon, lower prices on more offerings. If we do that, we almost can't help but increase customer visits to amazon.com or .co.uk. If we increase customer visits, we almost can't help but attract third-party sellers, right? I'm selling something. I know that there's lots of visitors on Amazon, lots of traffic. I'm going to want to have my products on there. If we have more third-party sellers, we almost can't help but expand the store, be able to deliver to more places, have more products. If we do that, we grow our revenues over fixed costs. And if we do that, and the crucial thing is the flywheel has to connect to itself, we almost can't help but have lower prices on more offerings. So there's probably a couple of things worth saying at this point about the concept of the flywheel. We've got that language, almost can't help but, which is one of my favorite things about the flywheel, is this sense that if we do enough of this thing, it's like almost by accident, we'll create more of what we want. And there are a couple of things that are good about that. One is it kind of takes the pressure off. I don't have to get it right every time. If I just do enough of this thing, good things will happen. And the other is it's kind of fit for the complexity of a coaching business. It's like you can't really predict how these things will go. That's been one of the things I've learned. But you can make yourself more client prone. And that's the idea of the coaching business flywheel, which we'll get to. The other thing that's worth saying about the concept of the flywheel, and this is, of course, a thing you can use with your clients for their business, but I've also done it for somebody's well-being. For example, what is the flywheel that helps you consistently feel better? And how do we tweak that in the right places? So the other thing to say about the concept of the flywheel is you can choose where you put energy into this, right? Amazon could be looking to find ways to lower more prices, or they could be finding ways to increase customer visits. Like the Amazon Prime program is a great example of that, right? Once you've got it, your delivery is free, it comes the next day, you end up on Amazon more often. And as you do that, that's good for them because you're buying more stuff, but also it feeds the energy of the flywheel. Similarly, if you find other ways to grow revenues over fixed costs, the flywheel starts turning. But crucially, not just for businesses, right? So there's another great example in turning the flywheel for an elementary school. So a primary school, if you're in the UK, if we select teachers, the teachers who are most infused with passion, that's our selection criteria. We almost can't help but build teams that are collaborative and work to improve the school. If we do that, we probably almost can't help but assess student progress a lot. If we do that, we're going to achieve more learning with each and every child. If we do that, we almost can't help but have a better reputation as a great place to teach. And if we do that, we almost can't help but have more teachers with passion wanting to work there. So it's kind of virtuous cycle. So then, of course, I thought, this is very exciting. What is the flywheel for my business? And it took me not long at all. My memory is like within a lunch break, I was like, hang on a sec, I know this. I've read a book called The Prosperous Coach, which some of you may have come across. It's, in my interviews on the Coach's Journey podcast, and as that's grown into our interviews in the Coach's Journey podcast, it's a very influential book. People have used it in lots of ways. One of the frameworks in that book is a flywheel. They don't talk about it exactly like that, but it absolutely is. For those who've read the book, it's connect, invite, create, propose. So if you connect with enough people, you almost can't help but invite some people into coaching conversations. That's one of the things the Prosperous Coach recommends, and I do too. If you do that, you almost can't help but create powerful coaching experiences for people. Because if you invite enough people, some of them say yes, then you get to coach, then you get to do your thing. If you do that, you almost can't help but make proposals, which is it costs X pounds to work with me for Y months. If you do that, you almost can't help but coach clients. And if you do that, they might refer people back to you, and you've got this virtuous cycle. I then spent like about six months teaching this in this form, and crucially made a kind of mistake in that because I got excited because I thought that in fact this was more than just a flywheel, that this was actually not only the things that if you do them enough, you can't help but have a sustainable coaching business, but also, which it is a flywheel for a sustainable coaching business. I also thought it was like the only things that you had to do as a coach to have a sustainable coaching business. So like, if you don't connect with anyone, you can't have a sustainable coaching business, I thought, which I think is true. And then I made some mistakes. And the reason that this came out was I was teaching this at a workshop with a client of mine, as Alex said, and then I looked at him and I thought, yeah, I've never invited him into a coaching conversation. So I was wrong about that part of it. You absolutely can have a coaching business without ever inviting someone into a coaching conversation. And so I got interested. Well, I'm wrong about this, but is it possible to do that? Is it possible to create a flywheel which not only is a flywheel for a coaching business, but also contains the only things you have to do to have a coaching business? And the curiosity about the only things you have to do goes back to my interest in the 12-minute method, productivity, and why we sometimes procrastinate on things. Because if we can know the only things we have to do, then we can really focus on doing them. And I think that that's what the coaching business flywheel does. We'll do that. Let's do that extra arrow in a sec. But it's possible that I'm wrong, as Alex said. And if I am, that's perfect, right? There's a great quote from, I think is he called George Box? Does anyone know this? He's like a statistician or something. And he says, all models are wrong, but some are useful, right? Because it's a model. So it's not reality, but it might be useful. And if somebody does spot the way it's wrong, I'd love to know. So here I think the 5 things that you have to do to have a sustainable coaching business. And if you do enough of each of them, you almost can't help but have a sustainable coaching business. So connect with people. If you never connect with anyone, you actually can't have a coaching business. Like, where do the people come from? It has to happen somewhere. You have to, at some point, offer an opportunity for people to experience you more. Now, this is where a distinction from the Prosperous Coach flywheel is important, because there are many ways to do that. And if you offer opportunities for people to experience you more, you almost can't help but help people create insight. If you do that, you almost can't help but, and this is pretty much the same as propose, but tell people how you work, how much it costs, and how to pay you. And if you do enough of that, you almost can't help but work with clients. And again, we get this arrow back to connect with people. So crucially, this works for the exception that I'd found that didn't work for the Prosperous Coach. So I had offered the podcast for people to experience me more. I had created insight through that for this person. I told him on a website and on the podcast how you sign up to the Coach's Journey community, and he had signed up. But at no point had I done some of these things on this Prosperous Coach flywheel. And then crucially, this is one of the ways that the flywheel sustains and stores up energy for you. When you help people create insight, you create the possibility for them to share your work, which connects you with more people. And so we have that extra arrow, which happens at that stage. Let's stop for a reflection or two before we go on. Does that feel good? Yeah, so that's quite quick. It's quite a lot. It's kind of deliberately so, like I said. What questions or reflections stand out in this moment? And you can stick them in the chat if you like, but it's more fun for us all if you unmute yourself.
Feels nuanced to try and figure out the balance of those different parts. Like, how do I know how much is doing enough of the connecting or doing enough of the inviting? That for me is where one part of this model is nuanced.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think the question you asked is like a beautiful question, beautiful coaching question, right? Like, what would be enough connecting to do, right? Like, very cool way of doing it. I've played with these ideas in a few ways. So I did some work with Rich Litvin over about a year. I was in one of his small group programs and then went to some of his live in-person intensives, and through that I really got to know that prosperous coach approach. And a tracking model is a really interesting way to play with this. So track how many times this week did I offer an opportunity for somebody to experience me more, for example, is one way to play with it. Another is it's sometimes fun. I love the tortoise and the hare, and the space for both in this kind of thing. There's space for the tortoise. So like, what's just enough for me to do each week? And I've got a client at the moment who's a coach where we're playing with two invitations into coaching sessions is enough. I don't need to do any more. 2 social media posts is enough. And that's my way of putting energy into the flywheel. But the hare is also fun. Sometimes, I think you did this for once, Alex, right? Like 100, did you do an invitations challenge? So 100 invitations in a 3-month period, something like that?
50 over 3 months.
50. Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm doubling it. But that's great because it's like a stretching challenge. Seems almost too simple. Yeah, Alice, I think it is. But like each part of it, so Alex, you said this when we were prepping this workshop, it's like each part of the flywheel, and in fact, each part of like, if we were to split each part into 3 or 4 bits, each part of those could be a full coaching session, right? So it's both simple and, as Alex Smith said, nuanced. Live will have a different weight of energy as a business evolves and expands. It's true. It's true. Yeah, how to help people create insight without it feeling forced. Asking coaching questions when it seems appropriate at networking groups, even though they have not directly asked for input. Yeah, it's a beautiful one. Let's like hold that, Lucy. Such a good question. We'll do like we'll do like a lightning trip through these different stages, which might open some of that up for you. Anything else before we do that?
Yeah, I think the step where you're getting paid is interesting, because sometimes you do this because it brings you such joy, right? As you give it, you get so much back. And so I think I came tonight because it's this getting over that, figuring out the value that you're actually delivering. I love to help other people get value in both directions, but now it's my turn, and I feel like sometimes awkward about that, and I want to get over that. So I love that was more refined than just proposal.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, the core thing is, if you want to have a sustainable coaching business, that sometimes you have to get paid. If you want to be able to continue doing this work, helping people for the long term, at some point you have to get paid. I mean, if you want it to be the thing that, this is like a crucial move, actually. It's a beautiful thing Liz Gilbert says in Big Magic, which is a beautiful book for people who haven't come across it. I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's like, basically she says, day jobs get a really bad rap. Like, what right have I to put like the weight of paying my mortgage on this beautiful, precious thing that means so much to me? Like, why is that a good idea? And I think there's deep wisdom in that. Sometimes better to have and I did this for about 15 months in my coaching, so I coached alongside a full-time job. Then I did about 15 months of working 3 days a week and coaching 2 days a week. Like a great place to do it. But if you want coaching to be the thing that pays you, you can't have that happen unless you sometimes say, it costs this much to work with me. This is how I work, and this is how you pay me.
Can I ask Alex a question? Of his 3 months that he sent out 50 invitations, what was the response?
Good question, actually. Actually, it picks up. I was going to add Sheila, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. What you've mentioned in the flywheel, in the chat around the flywheel's live, and will have a different weight of energy as your business evolves and expands. So actually, the short answer is, I did the 50 invitations and really didn't consider the fact that people would say yes. And so from it's a live thing, instantly the bit of energy I had to put my business in was no more invitations, but actually responding, doing coaching. And I was very clear on what the offer was, and why I was doing it, actually. So a couple of clients that paid for a few follow-on sessions, but it very much was, I want to gift 50 people a coaching session or offer that gift, because the fear for me is sharing my work as a coach and wanting to get experience coaching more people. But I think so. The experience is, it was slightly terrifying to start with, but now I can more consistently, regularly send an invite to the most random people that come to mind. And so it feels like that part of the flywheel is easier for me. But now, for example, the challenge is getting people to pay me, for example, might be one of them, because am I creating the things that offer that? Yeah, I think it helps learn what parts of the flywheel we feel comfortable with, kind of practice them, and the response also depends on who you ask as well.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It's like, so let's do, because some of these we're getting to some kind of like principles, which we might want to cover in the next bit. So let's do that quickly. Just because I think it'll begin to bring it to life. So there's a few things to say more about this. So, oops, the wrong slide. So if we think about connecting with people, it's important to say this is not networking and you don't hate it, right? This is creating meaningful connection with people, and you love that almost certainly, because that's probably why you do this whole thing in the first place. Often what I've noticed is people get lost in, I'm connecting in order to do something. And the crucial move here, like Alex has just defined, like, especially when we're starting out to build this resilience in the business, practice one thing at a time, right? So practice, like, what's it like to just grow the number of people who you're connected with? And the kind of key metaphor here is a seed planting one. Like, just focus on planting seeds of connection. Don't worry for now when you're practicing connecting with people about how and when they'll grow into clients. Like, that's a really hard thing to know. People will, if you're in this for the long game, people will pop up 5 years after you first met them with an email, and you'll be like, how the heck did this happen and why? And you can't know. And sometimes they'll explain it to you, and sometimes they'll have no idea. But the key move is make sure you're planting seeds, because that's energy into this business for the long term. Opportunities for people to experience you more. This is probably some of the stuff that you had to get over, Alex. I certainly did when I was practicing invitations. One of my coaches set me an invitations challenge. That's why we sometimes do that in the Coaches Journey community. You're just offering someone a gift, right? There's nothing sleazy about it unless you make it sleazy and weird, right? So like, if you make it sleazy and weird, for example, if you say it's just a gift and there's no pressure to say yes, and then you put pressure on somebody to say yes, that's weird, right? So you have to hold integrity and the agreements you make, but you're just offering someone a gift. Crucially, your question, Ash, sorry, I've lost you on the screen. The question we just had, crucially, some people will say no. Ashley, it wasn't it? Yeah, I was going to gamble on Ashley, but I didn't want to. Some people will not want your gift. That's okay. That's part of the game. Just like we all know that some people, I mean, you sometimes don't know they don't want your gift, right? They might ignore your email, which I think is the equivalent of taking the present from you at a birthday party and then casually giving it to their sister when you've gone home. The kind of key metaphor here is one of my favorites. This is kind of built on something I read Steve Chandler say. He was the other author of The Prosperous Coach. If someone's coming out of the desert and is desperate for a drink, don't withhold your water because of your stuff, right? Don't like, I don't want to be pushy about whether they have this water from me, or is it too salesy to say, would you like some water? Just give them the water or offer them it. And if they don't want it, that's okay, but don't let them suffer without checking. And for some people, a coaching session with you, for example, as a gift, or an article that you've written, or whatever experience it might be, a workshop that you're running, like, could be water in a desert. And got to remember that, like all the reasons that we were talking about before about loving coaching, it's because it can be magical. Help people to create insight. Don't tell them what it's like. Coaches get lost in that a lot in their businesses. Show them and let them feel it. This is why you got into this work, so you can enjoy this stage. Usually this is the most easy to enjoy stage. Enjoy like helping people create insight. And then kind of the distinction here, this is the metaphor. Alex Whitton is the king of analogies in my life. And so this was, I knew he would be like questioning this one. It's not the perfect metaphor for this, but I think it does work. So if you want someone to buy a car, letting them drive a car helps. So that's like, you can offer people insight in any way, because one of the things that coaching does is it creates insight. It helps us see differently. But if you want them to buy a particular car, right? If you want them to buy coaching, then let them drive that car. Otherwise, they're going to go home thinking, well, I want to buy the Toyota, and I imagine it's a bit like this Volkswagen that I drove, but I can't know for sure. But if they've actually driven the Volkswagen or the Toyota, I've forgotten what I just said, then if they've actually driven the car they want to buy, then they'll really know one way or the other. Tell people how you work, how much it costs. Don't hide from no, right? It's one of the reasons we said people sometimes don't do this. If they can't say no, they also can't say yes. Do your own money work. That might be some of the things that we were just talking about, or you were highlighting, Tina. It's like one of the crucial things. Most of us carry money stories, and it's a kind of crucial move. And the way to think about this, I think, as a metaphor, this is one from Toku McCree, who we had on the Coach's Journey podcast. If we're back with coaching being the water, and the coaching engagement being the cup, like we're going to give you structure through which to drink this water. It's a lot easier than a river or a fire hydrant. The proposal is the handle on the cup. So how do you make it into something people can hold? And then work with clients. So continue to learn and grow as a coach is crucial here. My brother works for a coach training organization called Coaches Rising. He's one of their partners. And I asked him a few weeks ago why they don't run a business development, any business development training. He said they've tried it didn't work for a few reasons, but also the take would be 80% of having a sustainable coaching business is being a great coach. And that's the work they do. So that's the work we can do. Continue to learn and grow as a coach. Trust your coaching. Like, you don't need to learn and grow more to start working with people. You know enough. The MOE training is easily good enough for you to be doing powerful work with people. And remember that every client is another seed planted, so play the long game. Lastly, these things that we've talked about, they are crucial, right? Those are the things that you repeat as often as you can, or you do enough, depending on whether you're playing the hare or the tortoise at this period. And they're the kind of input, right? We might call them the kind of indicators that we want to track. Then the arrows are crucial too. There's depth in them, and we can think about how to make them more smooth. Like, what's something we can do to help the connections turn into people we can offer opportunities to. So for example, I made a deal with myself. I realized the connection really counted for me if there was a way for them to contact me again. So me giving them a card in the old days was a good thing. Adding them on LinkedIn. I got over my vulnerability about adding people on LinkedIn and decided I could put up with people ignoring me. And gradually it stopped feeling like a vulnerable, painful thing to add someone on LinkedIn and became normal, because that's, like Alex said with the invitations, that kind of practice is powerful. Similarly, if you want to smooth that arrow from work with clients to connect with people, the very least we can do is tell our clients that we'd like to be connected to people. Like, there's an 80-20 on that. Like, have you told everyone you've ever coached, my business basically works by word of mouth. Can you think of anyone who would love to be connected with me? And then we start to hopefully smooth that arrow and have more people move along it that way. So there is some more content. Alex, do you want to pick up for the next bit?
Yeah, we've got more space for reflections. Actually, as you were presenting it, the question that came to my mind is, I'd really love everyone to just reflect either in the chat or share it. Where might you have done this before without realizing?
And when you say done before?
So either in your coaching business or in another aspect of your work. But yeah, if you can relate it to the coaching you've done. But yeah. But another way might be, can you map something you've previously done to share your coaching work or to create insight onto the flywheel? Yeah, Sheila.
I think, yeah, just thinking back to starting the journey, and I met Claire and Robbie on the same day, actually, on a walk in Malvern, thanks to Kat for letting me know about the walk. And about 6 months later, Claire invited me to be on her podcast before I even really started the business. And I just took the opportunity to say yes without really knowing what I was going to talk about. And I realized then that on a podcast, I'm sharing a bit of myself and allowing people to experience me, not directly through one-to-one coaching, but they got to know me through a conversation with Claire. So I guess that was, yeah, connecting with people first. Then I was able to invite people to experience me through the podcast. And then through that, through Claire's questions, I was able to hopefully help people come up with some insights with a few tips I gave. And then I was able to gain a couple of clients from that. So yeah, I just realized that, yeah, it's a full flywheel there.
Yeah, I love it. And Keely, I just want to catch you just done a really nice thing there, which is you haven't taken the language of the flywheel too seriously. So that's really important. Like, sometimes, for example, offering people a chance to experience you more doesn't mean you creating something. It might mean you accepting the offer of the universe, right? Which is because I certainly have found this when there's when I'm really thinking about this, sometimes these opportunities come up that otherwise I would have said no to. And instead I'm like, now I know that I'm focused on offering people chances to experience you more. This is so obviously a good chance for me to do that. I'd better say yes to it, which is really different to, am I and kudos to you, because I think if I had been invited to be on a podcast before I started the business, I would have been like, no, who am I? Like, I'm not going to do that in the slightest. So really well done for doing it. But sometimes it's about, and even, if we think about telling people how much it costs to work with us, we should give ourselves credit when we, any of these things, when we accept the opportunity, as well as when we directly go out and do it in the kind of somewhat simplified way that I explained it.
Yeah, no, thank you. I realize as well, if I didn't accept it, I think I'd still be pondering about starting my business now. So having that hard deadline really helped.
Thanks, Keely. And Joe in the chat popped down the MOE 1010, which is members of the MOE community you can all get involved with, and I'll probably butcher exactly what it is, so Alex may jump in and catch it. But I think it's gifting 10 sessions as part of MOE's Pay It Forward.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity.
Interestingly, I found that trying to give it away one of the most difficult things I ever had to do. And I think I only got to 9. I never got to 10. And then I forgot about it. It was amazing. It was a bit like it was easier to get paid to coach than to give it away. And I wish I knew why, because I have absolutely no idea. And I remember filling it in a form and sending it in and saying, it's 9. That's the end of it.
It's funny you say that. Actually, there's a funny story on the coachesjourney.com in an article I wrote about me trying to give away a free coffee, and how I got turned down like 6 times until some backpacker types accepted the coffee from me. So you're right. Sometimes it is hard to give things away to people, yeah. But it is, yeah. That sounds like a great initiative, like perfect chance to often. To get over the kind of awkwardness of it, having the really good excuse of the MOE 1010, for example, is like a great way to practice these kinds of things. Yeah. Shall we do breakouts, Alex?
Yeah. So yeah, you've had enough of that. So opportunity. You both we're gonna get into breakouts. I think we're gonna set up. Alex, we do 12 minutes, so you'll have a minute to introduce one another, and then take it in turns to coach each other. So 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes. And the question we thought of is, well, coach either person on what they noticed in the flywheel and what would be helpful, serve one another. But if you want to start a question, when we are putting this together, the thought is, well, for me at least, models always seem like they answer everything. So what is this answering for you? If you need to start a question, but Alex has been putting the breakout rooms together in the background, so I'm just going to open those up in a minute. So it's a couple of minutes to introduce one another and then take it in turns to just coach each other on the flywheel for 5 minutes. So yeah, what came from your conversations? What insights?
I was with Joanne, who's now on camera, which she wasn't before, and that was really good. It was really helpful. She's going to be a brilliant coach. I think she only just qualified for MOE last week, blimey. But it did. Her speaking about what she was doing suddenly made me realize, oh, it's those conversations I used to have with people where they would say something to me and I would offer my assistance, which would end up my coaching them. I never offered free anything apart from the MOE 10-10, and as I said, I never got to 10, I only got to 9. I've always gone straight on to this is what you'd have to pay me to do that. But that was the missing, and that's the thing. I've stopped doing that. I've stopped listening for people's pain. And an example I gave years ago, someone I coached for a couple of years, when he said to me in a conversation, or there's something like not enough hours of the day, or all those types of conversations. And that's where I got in, and I found him loads of hours of his day, oddly, or he found them with my help, I should say.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. So what might you do differently from that?
Well, do differently, to go back to what I was doing previously, which is in those conversations, because I've been in training and doing other things as well. I've been concentrating on that. And while also coaching, I used to do a lot more coaching than I am now. And I mean, I did the MOE 10 years ago. So I've been coaching a long time, but there are conversations, opportunities that have just walked past me because I've not really been, my reticular activation system hasn't been tuned in to what it is they're saying. That's really my learning from that, which has been brilliant. It's really good.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, there's some nice reflections in the chat as well about Joe saying, and this we'll probably talk about this in a minute, what came to light for me were the areas I felt more comfortable with and the areas I felt less comfortable with, which is very useful insight. Yeah, I think like that conversation you two just had, Alex and Ashley, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, one of the things a model can do, Alex Smith and I, while you were in the breakouts, were talking a little about models in coaching. One of the things they can do is like show us the bit that we're not paying as much attention to. If the model tries to, as this one does, like have a complete picture, there'll usually be some bits that we're doing really well and some bits that we just haven't thought about, perhaps for a long time in Ashley's case, or we're not doing because we don't feel as comfortable with them, which might be what Joe's doing, although that's not what you actually said, Joe. So I think that's really interesting. Let me just pick up this piece from Joe, though, which is what came to light were the areas I felt more comfortable with and the areas I felt less comfortable with. So, like I said, we're interested in the coach's journey at, what if the vision for the world is no one quits coaching because the business of coaching feels too hard, right? And like, we've got this sense of the people on this call, I imagine you're here, we've kind of seen in the chat the things that you want more of, like what you want from the workshop, where you want to be. And there's some degree of like I guess, well, the way of thinking about it is this. The consultant and a coach author, Fred Kaufman, very interesting guy. One of the things he teaches when he teaches coaching is the coaching happens in the gap, right? And the gap is the space between where I am now and where I want to be. So like where I want to be is a sustainable coaching business. Here's where I am now. What's in between? Like, how do we bridge that gap? And the coaching is on that. And so the work, in a way, the work we do at the Coach's Journey is to bridge that gap. So perhaps the gap is like knowledge of how a coaching business works, or a model which enables you to see every corner of that and therefore think about it differently. Perhaps the gap is like ideas. And then there's a podcast with like I don't know how many it is, like 100 hours more now of coaches talking about what they've done. And perhaps that bridges the gap. in fact, we even, and there's a discount for you if anybody wants this. Like one of the things I did last year is one of the gaps is having to test like what to say to people at what stage with clients, and like how to kind of navigate that, and like, you know, years of learning of what to say to people when. So I took all the emails I basically ever send to clients and put them in a PDF, which you can buy, and we've got a discount code for you if you want it. But again, it's a way to kind of bridge the gap that might be between where people are and the sustainable coaching business they want. And what's fun when you've created a lot of resources like that, fun for a coach, is that what's left between where you are, and we had a great conversation about this on a Coach's Journey community call recently. We were talking about reaching out to people, and I had this insight that, like, you know, everyone on this call knows 100 people, and everyone on this call has written like 10,000 emails and text messages in their life, and yet somehow, for some people, sending 10 messages to 10 of those 100 people feels really hard. And I know why that is for me, and I've done a lot of work on that. But that's fun, right, as a coach, because that's the gap. And the cool thing is it's a gap that we can do work on in coaching sessions, because really the only thing we can do work on in coaching sessions, right, is the two people in the coaching session, because that's all we've actually got. So when your gap is something to do with the person, that's really exciting. So there's a couple of frames that I want to share to think about that, and then we'll probably have, what time are we on, like 20 minutes to do questions or coaching if we want to do that. So the two frames. The first one is soul work and goal work. And I always laugh at it because I always think terms should be coined like for like deep, meaningful reasons, like they come out of research, and yet we know all terms are coined because people look for something that rhymes or forms a good acronym. But the idea here is, one of the things I've noticed was two parts of this that are important. So one of the things I've noticed is each of those stages on the flywheel works less well if you're doing it purely to end up with clients. So connecting with people is less likely to lead to clients if you spend the whole time thinking, this person could be a great client, right? Unless you name it, right? So you can mitigate that, but if you don't do it, it makes it less likely to succeed. Similarly, if you try and help people to create insight purely to create a coaching client, people tend to pick up on that on some level. Probably the exception to some extent is telling people how your business works. Like that one, like it's pretty clear why you're doing that. And yet still, what I've found is, and this we'll get to, this is the kind of soul work move, I'm much better at it when I stop it being about creating a client and start that proposal conversation being about, how do the two of us work out if there is a wonderful way for us to work together where you pay me some money and I do some work for you and we both end up better off? Like, what a different thing that is to, can I say this in the right way so that this person becomes a client? And people do pick up on that. It's not that you can't get results by doing that, but people do pick up on it. The other reason why it's worth thinking about soul work instead of goal work is that it gets around some of the resistance we have, like that for example, Tina might have to moving that, moving somebody from free client to paid client. Like if you can, so the soul work move is this. We have to put some little sprinkling of goal work in here, right? Otherwise, we will never make a proposal to anyone. We will never say it costs this much to work with me, right? If we don't know that there's an aim here to have coaching paying us, it's very easy to avoid ever doing that. So we need a sprinkling of goal work, and then we have to basically put that as far back as we can in our mind and make each part of it something that we would be delighted to do, whether there was a client at the end of it or not. So can I make connecting with people just a really wonderful experience? Can I make, like I said, the conversation about money with someone a way of serving someone by really helping them work out, for example, if they want to make a commitment where they spend money on developing themselves? Like, that is quite a thing to hold people through when most people have never spent £100 on their own personal development, let alone thousands, right? So there's an incredible gift you can make of every part of the flywheel. And that's one invitation, right? How can you make each part of the flywheel soul work for you, a thing you would be delighted to do whether you got paid for it or not? And then you've got your goal work in the back of your mind, and you can trust that if you do enough of these things, purely as soul work, you almost can't help but end up with the outcome that you want anyway. So it's a slight paradox, but a kind of important one to have in mind. The other thing to say is, as a kind of extra motivation for you to do all this. So I was really lucky. You know, sometimes a book comes along that makes a real difference to you at a key moment. And I was really lucky that my brother gave me The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield just before I started my coaching business. Funny part of the story is I got to like put it on my bookshelf and found I already had a copy of The War of Art. I'd just been avoiding reading it for a long time. And The War of Art is a book about avoiding things. And so that's funny for me. There are many interesting things in that book. It's a great book for doing the things we want to do, even when it feels hard. He has this concept in it, resistance, which is his frame for all the fears and anxieties and procrastination that we do to avoid doing the things that matter to us. And then there's this crucial thing that he says in there, which I'm going to, again, slightly misquote, but we've got it on a slide so that you can read the actual quote. But it's basically this. A good rule of thumb is the more resistance we feel towards a call or action, the more important that call or action is to our soul's evolution. So the more resistance we feel towards doing something, the more important that doing that thing is to our soul's evolution. And I love Pressfield's willingness to use the word soul. That's probably why it's in my my rhyming term. So the reason this may be extra motivation here is if there is one of these parts of this, or something Alex or I have mentioned in this workshop that feels really hard to you, there's that extra reason to do it. That by doing it, it might be the thing that helps you grow the most. And I've certainly found that rule of thumb to ring true for me. And I could talk about that for hours. Another frame for this, kind of to put that into perspective, is one of the things I noticed when I look at the flywheel is, like Alex was talking about with invitations, these are all things we can practice, we can get better at. And actually, we're really lucky that the flywheel for our business is a set of things that most people who are coaches would love to be better at. Like they're kind of things that make life worth living, right? Creating meaningful connection with someone. Like if I can do work on that so that I resist it and procrastinate and avoid it and find it uncomfortable less, like my life is just better. If I can offer opportunities to people as a genuine gift, things that I think will help them, that is just a thing that improves my life. And if I can talk about money in a way that feels about service, not about kind of cringing, then that's very, very useful for me in all kinds of places. So that's my little extra shot in the arm of why it's worth paying attention to these things. It'd be lovely if people are up for it in the chat really quickly to just hear which part of the flywheel. So actually, let me show it again. Like which of these parts of the flywheel do you feel the most resistance about? Because I'm curious if we'll get everyone saying the same thing or everyone saying different things. Proposal, yeah, Lucinda says that. Yeah, I hear that. I still get that. I wonder what it is for me. I think I'm in Connect at the moment. And that's the one that I'm kind of resisting. A little bit of offering opportunities. Yeah, that's the one I'm most resisting. I'm glad we did this workshop. Yeah, Cat offering opportunities, invitations to connect from Ashley. Yeah. So a few more offering opportunities, and Joe offering and telling people how you work, how much it work, and how much it costs. Okay, so yeah, it's kind of those two mostly. It looks like. How I work. Yeah, Joanna, that is a fair reason. Sometimes resistance is real. It is more awkward to tell people how you work when you're not sure how it's going to work yet. And we could have some fun working that out for you tonight if you want. Yeah, but it's interesting that those two places, how interesting. Offering the opportunities. So it's like, I guess that I would say that is the most vulnerable of them. So requires the most courage. So to me, it's not that surprising that one flags up. And just because of how we deal with money, I mean, I don't actually know how many of you are in the UK, but how we deal with money conversations in the UK is no surprising to me that one comes up as well. By the way, Sheila had a great question. How does reaching out to people, offering opportunities, work with data protection? So like, look, it's a really important thing to say about this at this stage. We have to do, well, we believe at the Coach's Journey. Alex and I had a great conversation also about all the people who harass us on LinkedIn trying to build their coaching businesses in weird and wonderful ways that don't seem full of integrity to us. And at the Coach's Journey, we believe in building a coaching business with integrity, right? That the long game is important, right? That if you piss people off now, then that is going to interrupt the flywheel, right? Whereas if you hold the business with integrity, then the thing will build momentum. And so when we think about data protection, like that is really important. That we're not, again, if we're thinking about making it a sleazy gift, it is a bit of a sleazy gift if I kind of steal some email addresses from my old work, or people have, I've told people I won't contact them about something and then I contact them about something else. So yeah, like social media, WhatsApp. I think most people with email addresses that have been exchanged won't have a data protection problem with that, but we've got to think about it from a point of view of, in my view, of what would I be happy with? Would I be happy that Lucinda sent me an email saying, I loved seeing you on that workshop. Something about what you said made me think, actually, I could coach you. Would you like to do that? Like, I would love that. I mean, I might say no, because that's part of the thing that happens if people reach out. But like, would I have a problem with that? No. If like suddenly I turned up on, I don't know if, Lucinda, you have a business, I'm imagining that there's some work you do and it's got some mailing list, and I suddenly end up on that and I'm like, is this okay? Not really. My coaching agreement says, I promise not to do anything with your data that would upset me or my mother or my mother-in-law. And so, you can count on me for that.
Also,
so go on, Alex.
Yeah. In there, Robbie, I think it touched on the soul work bit, but I think, and it came out in my breakout space, it's like, firstly, how would you love to receive an offer? Because that's probably the best way for you to go about offering it. But also, what's the way that you would love to give that in an authentic way? What's therefore the medium? So I noticed quite naturally, the people I love to coach, the people that often inspire me or I've had an interesting conversation with. So when I invite them for that, I would then go, it's because I find that I enjoy working with people that inspire me, and this is why you inspire me. And I found that if I couldn't actually genuinely think of why they inspired me, then I therefore deleted the message and didn't send it.
Such a good point, Alex. And that invitation template, by the way, or a version of the invitation that Alex has meant, is in the booster pack thing that we sell if you want to go that far. So we've got about 15 minutes. We can do some coaching. It would be cool, I think, if at least one person who is offering opportunities resistance filled was up for doing some coaching, and one person who wanted to talk about telling people how you work was up for doing some coaching in front of the group. There's no pressure to do that, right? Remember, leadership, courage, vulnerability, honesty, like no is a great piece of honesty here. Definitely don't do this out of kind of your people-pleasing tendencies, but that would be cool. There was something else I was going to say. So if you'd like to do some coaching now, then like put your hand up or bring yourself live. The thing I was going to say is, of course, Alex and I know about the Coaching Business Flywheel. And so it is worth declaring that we are doing it right now, right? Hopefully with integrity. I've certainly connected with a load of new people in this call. I'd love to do some coaching with some of you if some of you are up for that. Partly because goal work, back of mind, maybe one day you become a client. Mostly because soul work, I really believe in this thing. I really love coaching, and I'd love to get to do some coaching with you. So who's up for being courageous?
Yeah, I'd happily be coached around telling people about what I work, but maybe let one of the, if none of the other participants are, just in my place as facilitator.
That's great.
You can have me in your back pocket, so to
yeah, but also courage as well, and a little vulnerability, because sometimes if we're in the facilitator job, we feel like we have to be at the back. Sheila, happy to be coached. Perfect. Anybody else? Because
I'm happy to be coached, yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, so let's do Sheila, and then Ashley, and then let's see how we get on. Maybe we can do 3. So Sheila, how can I support you this evening?
So I'm really fascinated by the wheel, but it's brought up some things that I hadn't thought of before, because I'm going to be joining a group of coaches. So some of those connections are already there. And also I have another business which I'm also running in parallel, and for that, word of mouth was my network connection. So reaching out to social media seems very uncomfortable and alien.
Yeah. And tell me, like, I don't know if we can do it, but if we could do the magic wand in this moment and change something for you, like, what do you want to have by the end of the call?
Maybe some small steps on, well, first of all, to see, do I need the social media? Yes, I do. I've answered that question already. It would be what my values are and how to get those across when reaching out to other people.
Lovely. So I'm gonna push back on your answer.
Mm-hmm.
My answer to your question, do I need social media, is a very clear no.
Okay.
Like, just to give you that context from what I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
if we think about the flywheel, if we trust that I'm close to right, at least about that,
Mm-hmm.
you do need to be able to connect with people,
Mm-hmm.
and you do need to be able to offer opportunities for people to experience you more, and you do need to be able to help people create insight. And social media is a tool
Mm-hmm.
to do those things, but it is not the only tool. And I think you've already, like, if you've built another business by word of mouth,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like, really the crucial moment, if we go back to the flywheel, let me see if I can share that screen. I can't remember, can you see my cursor on this or not?
Yes.
So the crucial moment on the flywheel, right, is this one, this arrow from work with clients to connect with people, and this one from help people create insight to connect with people. So those are the places where the word of mouth happens, right? And a coaching business does work by word of mouth as well. So a social media, so one of the ways to use the flywheel is to answer all these questions that as coaches we often hear, or once we've been coaching for a while, like I once did with Kat, which is how we first met. You ask experienced coaches these questions, and one of the questions, the flywheel is useful for answering those questions. Do I need social media? Like, well, it's not quite as simple as that, because the question really is, when and how could social media be useful for me in doing the things on this flywheel? Similarly, do I need a niche for my coaching business? Well, it's not as simple as yes or no. Like, there's definitely cases of people who don't. So the answer is no, you don't have to have one. But is it useful? Well, yeah, social media and having a niche are useful for knowing who to connect with, making those connections, and all those kinds of things. So there's a piece for you. Let me just check in with you on, because I'm doing, and I sometimes do this with, we're doing kind of coaching here, but there's various hats I can give. So I'm giving you a thing because I know I can give you it because I've learned some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not attached to being right about it. So this is like the leadership thing. If it doesn't feel right or valuable, that's perfect. Like, what are you noticing just in this moment, having heard that?
So that's a relief, because I think I would find it really hard to sustain a social media presence. A landing page I definitely need, so I can direct people there. You mentioned about different hats, so I do have different hats. So I will still be supporting people in my specialist teacher role. I'll be coaching alongside other coaches for autism and ADHD, and then I'll also be through the place where I trained over in America for youth resilience and wellbeing coach. So I've got a few streams there. Plus, I'm also doing a little extension course from what I do for non-medical helper mentoring and study skills for autism and ADHD at uni. So I think that will help make a lot of natural connections.
Yeah. For me,
So
that sounds like an
thank you.
incredibly good business plan, basically.
Sorry?
That sounds like a great business plan, right? All those ways you'll make connections, like you said.
Plan sounds very business-like, Robbie. So thank you for that. It's just actually a natural evolution.
Yeah. So Sheila, let me just play a few things back and catch them for other people. So I think I completely agree. A landing page is really valuable, really useful. My favorite landing page of any coach is, she was my coach for a long time, Katie Harvey. She's been coaching for about, I think 20 years. I've known her for nearly 9 now. The whole time I've known her, her website has said new website coming soon. Please email me here, right? So what a coach's website needs to say is, here's how you email me to go to the next stage. And like ideally has a picture of you, because then people can kind of see your face and get that feel for you, but it doesn't have to. Sheila's just done an amazing job, everyone, of like giving a whole set of tactics for everyone who wants to put energy into the flywheel through connection, right? Like all those different hats that she has are perfect places to do the connect piece. Just be a person who loves meaningful connection in all those places. And, you know, if you want the arrow from connect to offer opportunities, it's just being ready, Sheila, to like, to spot those moments, a bit like Ashley was saying, for, I think this could be a person actually where there's another way I could help them too. And do I want to say that to them? And for what it's worth, as a kind of final piece for you to think about, my feeling about values is show, don't tell. So it's like, I'm pretty sure you'll turn up as yourself in all those places, and that's how people will get to know you, and they'll have those experiences with you, and then interesting things start to happen.
Thank you.
The other piece for everybody, I guess, that comes up for me there is, we suffer as an industry by being sold a lot of stuff by a lot of people as the final answer. So we had in the description of this, it's not a quick fix. What did we say, Alex? We said it's 5
hard steps.
5-figure business in 5 years and 5 hard steps. And that's my joke about all the emails I get saying 6 minutes and six-figure business in 6 days or whatever it is, right? But these are all, so we get a lot of people trying to sell us how we should do this. And the move, in my view, should always be, you know, do it according to your strengths and the things you do. So don't feel like you have to do social media. If you love social media, like, lucky you, because that's going to be really useful for you. If you don't, that's perfect as well. Let's do Ashley. Ashley, what would make the next few minutes really useful for you?
Actually, the work you just did with Sheila actually answers a lot of my questions. So that has been really good. So I was doing loads of coaching at one time with lots of coaching clients, sometimes for a number of years, the same people. And then I was doing other things and training. And as that training became in recent months quite sticky, that part of the business, for whatever reason it did. And I know I'm not the only person in that area that's suffering from that, although nobody actually really knows why that is. I really thought, well, you know, I've really neglected my coaching, although I do have one ongoing coaching client who I coach every 6 weeks. And I'm just out of the practice of generating myself work as a coach. And I looked at your flywheel, which is great. And connecting with people is something I've not really been that, you know, had a problem with. And over the years, but as I said, I've realized today from my conversation with Joanne when we're in the breakout room is that I'm actually not really having create any opportunities. So I need to think about getting my brain around that. The connecting thing that's fine. You know, if we can blow off social media, that will be great, because I do use LinkedIn, but I do desperately hate it. And that's bad, right? Because I'd rather enjoy it, but I don't even like reading what other people have posted. I did used to, but there was too much time. Hey, look at me. And you think, I don't want to look at you. So yeah. So I just want some help, really, just to sort of some encouragement to get me back to where I was. And I was trying to remember how I generated that much coaching work, but now I can't remember.
Yeah, it's lovely, and lots of people are laughing along with you, feeling your social media pain there, Ashley, if you haven't got everybody up. The thing that comes up for me in regards to that social media thing, I think is really interesting, which is like, there will be other people feeling that same pain, hating LinkedIn in the same way, and they're probably the people that you would do great work with. And that's why it's important for you not to waste too much time there. It's good. Sometimes it's good to be on there, see what things are happening. Like, I managed to find a way to make LinkedIn soul work in some ways, but it came through my personal growth. work, not through tactics on building a business. And that's my blog, and people can kind of read that story if they want. Here's the gift I'd give you, Ashley. I think there's just a cool invitation you can send if you want to everyone you ever coached. Because if you've got that client base, right? Well, hang on, let me catch it. I'll come to that in a sec. So one of the things I think you flagged, Ashley, is like it does pay to have a practice for each part of the flywheel, but particularly a connect practice, because we can get out of the habit of it. And then we need to have, it takes a long time for the seeds to grow. So we get in the situation where like, we wish we'd been connecting with people 3 years ago continually so that the connections had kept going. So having a connect practice of some kind. Now that can come in any way. Where do I connect with people? Like, where do people go? They go everywhere. You can just go somewhere, and all of that works. And then of course you can work out which way works best. The gift I give you is those people, those former coaching clients, feel ripe to me for an invitation, which is something like, and this will be on the recording if you want to use it. Hey, I've I got some advice. Oh, let me get it. I'll get it. I've been thinking about my business recently, and I've realized that my coaching work, which used to form a big part of my business, has become a much smaller part, and I want to change that now. And one of the things that a coach gave me some advice on is to think about reaching out to the people I've coached in the past, just to gift them a session as a gift from me. And the two things that are in it for me are I get to practice coaching more, or the three things: I get to connect with you again, and maybe you'll know somebody who might be interested in working with me. And then the thing you might get is a coaching session from me. And it's just a gift. There's no pressure. I won't be trying to sell coaching to you. And then my guess, Ashley, would be that if you do that with even 10 people, you'll start to see some referrals start to come in. And one of them is bound to say, oh, this was so useful. I'd forgotten how useful coaching with you was. Let's do some more. Can't guarantee it, but almost can't help but if you send, and if you've got 50 or 100 of those people, it'll take you a little while to get through them, but it's a really, really nice move. And just I just got to say, like, I've been doing that a bit recently. It's a lovely thing to do, because you get to step back into that space that you've forgotten what it's like with somebody from 5 years ago.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's great advice. Thank you.
Nice. And basically everyone can do that. So Alex, we don't quite have time. You'll have to come to a Coach's Journey community call.
Invite more connection.
Exactly. So Alex, I'd love to have you. Let's do it. Like, I mean, we can do it offline as well, Alex. We can find 15 minutes and do some coaching if you want to do that. But also the September will be the next one. So every quarter there's a Coach's Journey community call, which has a feel a little bit like the last 15 minutes, that you can come to by paying just £20. And so you come along, you get to meet a load of coaches, and we get to have some fun together. So let me quickly do the last slide so that we can leave on time, which has got, I think, Alex, jump on if there's anything else we're forgetting to say. I think it's the call to action slide. Okay, so here's some call to action if you want. The offers to experience us more. Free ebook, an introduction to the Coaching Business Flywheel there. That's got some stuff about why. It's got more detail about the flywheel. It's got some of the story I told, and it's got why I recommend invitations, like the practice I just offered to Ashley, as a kind of the key move for most people starting coaching business. The Coaching Business Flywheel Booster Pack is loads of template emails. It comes with a guarantee, which is that if you use it and a year later, you don't feel like it's paid back the investment in money or in learning, then I'll give you the money back, or I'll coach you for a session. And you can have 20% off if you put MOE is Great 2024 in the checkout. You can listen to the podcast, and you can email us, and really mean that. Like, we really believe, Alex and I, in the power of coaching and in having amazing people like you doing amazing work. So we'd love to hear from you, whatever that's about, and we'll always help if we can. Anything else you want to say, Alex, before we wrap, or Alex?
Can I just mention the Movement Conference for those who it's on the 11th of October in London. I don't know if anybody signed up to speak, but I've been involved with it right from the beginning. It's amazing. So attend, certainly, please, as an audience, if you can. But if you I don't know how many speaking slots are still available, but if there are, take them. And the week before, you get some speaker coaching from me. which is really, really good fun aside from anything else. So yeah, sign up to that if you can. That'd be great.
Very cool. Also, did you see that Ashley through that is going to get some beautiful connection? He's going to get great opportunities for people to experience him more. And it's a lovely little offer there as well. Yeah, I want to do it too. Nice. Alex, anything else?
Just a huge thank you to everyone for turning up and bringing the realness, bringing the engagement, bringing your thought-provoking opinions that have made this a really rich and interactive session in the chat. A huge thank you to you, Robbie and Alex, for the really smooth and valuable hosting as well.